Fulham going really well at the moment, really well. And it's going to be no easy game. I know when you bring up like the head-to-head between the teams, Spurs obviously have a very healthy head-to-head with 4 wins and a draw in the last 5 games, albeit going back a number of years because of Fulham's yo-yoing up and down the leagues. But look, it's going to be a really difficult game. Mitrovic is going to be up for it. They've got good players. Marco Silva's got them playing really well at the moment. They did really well against Chelsea last week, and they very much deserve to get those 3 points. But what do we have to do to win this game, Sim?
Not make stupid mistakes. So we chuck the ball in the back of the net. That would help. Not. I mean, in terms of our defence, I mean, we just have to hope that they're not going to be calamitous. I think, look, when the reality is they're probably not going to be under as much pressure as they were against Arsenal and Man City, and with less pressure makes it less likely to make mistakes in these kind of games. We need to make sure that the service into Mitrovic is cut out. Obviously, right now, Pereira, Willian, they're playing fairly well at the moment, and they're not going to be the easiest to stop. But I think they're big pluses right now. Willian's outperforming himself because he was terrible a couple of years ago at Arsenal, but he's really playing very well. Andres Pereira, his set pieces and his delivery into Mitrovic has been fantastic. And Mitrovic's hold-up play, he's so strong. He's very good in the air. He wins flick-ons. He brings other players into play. That's very dangerous. But also, they got very decent technical central midfielders. Harrison Reed's a decent passer of the ball, albeit I think off the ball he's a bit suspect. But João Palhinha has been absolutely fantastic since joining Fulham. He's really given that grit, that determination. But not only does he do that, he also adds technical quality. I don't think he would look out of place at Spurs at all. I think he'd be he'd be kind of perfect for what we need. João Palhinha in central midfield. In our system, he's kind of had that really good mix of good technical ability and really hard graft, and I think he's always near the top for tackles and interceptions in central midfield, and that obviously that midfield coupled with a good solid foundation defensively gives him a good foundation to be solid at the back and then get players forward to support Mitrovic as much as possible, and it's led to some very good results, and they're really performing very well. I think 4 wins out of the last 5. They just lost to Newcastle only because of a 90th minute goal by Isaac. Other than that, they could have got a 0-0 draw there. Against all the big teams as well, they've given them a really good game. Arsenal, they scored a 90th minute winner early in the season. City had to score a 95th minute penalty, if I remember rightly, earlier in the season when it was 1-1. De Bruyne winning a last-minute penalty. Spurs, to be fair, when we played them early in the season, that was probably one of the better performances from Tottenham.
Is that when Richarlison scored that disallowed goal?
Yeah, we were actually we won 2-1, and that kind of flattered Fulham. That was one of the better performances against Fulham by a big team, but the point is, it doesn't matter who they play, they give a good game and they make it tough, and it's going to be very, very tough at Craven Cottage for Spurs as well, especially as well because it's a very compact pitch. I feel like Tottenham prefer it, especially against the weaker teams, when the pitch is stretched as much as possible to make it as wide as possible to get the wing backs involved. But because Fulham's pitch is very compact, a bit smaller, Spurs aren't very good at intricate pieces of play and playing in between the lines, and that's what's going to make it difficult against Fulham, in my opinion.
Yeah, if you bring up the form of the two sides, Fulham on sensational form, 1 loss in their last game, but before that, 4 wins on the trot. At home, they're a really strong side, unbeaten in their last 5 games with 2 draws in there. Even away from home, they're performing really well with 3 wins and 2 losses. Spurs is Jacqueline Hyde away form. How do you see that coming up against this Fulham side with such confidence about them? Yeah,
I think it's going to be difficult, especially because we can only play for one half, and it doesn't matter what half we play in. We know that the other half we're going to struggle. It's interesting when I think about the one half thing, because Lloris was quoted saying that he feels like Spurs really struggle to play at their best throughout the whole game, throughout 90 minutes, and kind of they have to pick their moments to really go at teams and then also be solid and compact. And I was reading a thread again by our friends at the Extra Inch from Nathan Clark, he was saying he was analysing Tottenham's form this season, and he said he's come to conclusion from analysing the games this season, the performances, that Spurs don't have the players to really dominate physically for 90 minutes. He's saying it's not to say that we have bad fitness. That isn't the conclusion, but the conclusion is there's a difference between having good fitness and being physically dominant over a team. And to be physically dominant, you have to have the fitness to run over 90 minutes over your opponent, have that advantage over opponent. There's one thing running for 90 minutes, but there's one thing running faster than your opponent for 90 minutes, you understand? Like, so there is a big difference there, and he feels like Spurs, when it comes to being dominant over an opponent physically, they can't do it for 90 minutes physically. They don't have the profile of players to do that, so they have to pick their moments to do it, because if they try to do over 90 minutes they get picked off too much, and they can't sustain it basically. And that's why you're seeing at the moment Spurs are kind of picking their moments to try and be physically dominant. He thinks it's tactical rather than something that's just been forced upon us. Do
you agree with that?
I mean, I haven't gone through all games and analysed it. I would say from a strategy standpoint, it would seem to not make sense to do that unless you feel like the team isn't capable of doing it over 90 minutes. And then from that point of view, I guess what choice would you have? If you try it over 90 minutes and you're not good enough to do it, then I guess it would make sense to kind of pick your moments. But obviously we're not choosing to concede first, but what we are potentially choosing to do is try and get the opposition to burn themselves out, and then try and be physically dominant in the second half, instead of burning ourselves out, and then all of a sudden we're struggling in the second half. And maybe that's why we're seeing Spurs at the moment kind of only being able to play well in parts as opposed to a full performance. And if that's the case, the manager obviously has to take some blame for that, but he would argue he's doing it out of necessity. But it's difficult to really analyse without it's difficult to say whether that's correct or not without knowing for sure and analyse it myself.
I don't know. I don't think it's an instruction. I'm not buying that, to be honest. All the players and the coaching staff look completely lost why we're not performing in both halves, not starting games well, and I just can't see that being a case. When you look at some of the players that we have, Bentancur and Højbjerg in the middle, who I think can impose themselves and be physically dominant. You're looking at the wing backs. Fair enough, they might not be able to with Doherty and Perisic, but I think majority of other players can do it on the pitch. I don't know what's going on with this football club.
But Bentancur and Højbjerg, yes, but the problem is when you're in a two-man midfield against a lot of teams that play three. They can't do it again over 90 minutes. There'll be parts of the game where they will be able to impose themselves and cover lots of ground, but because they're in a two, they're going to be stretched, and so that means they have to exert even more energy to cover even more ground. And I think not that they struggle, but I think if they had right players around them, especially in centre back, it could be something that works. But with our centre backs unable to kind of step out of defence and physically impose themselves over strikers and midfielders, apart from maybe Romero, other centre-backs pretty much can't do it. So if they're not able to do it, that stretches Bentancur and Højbjerg even more. And that means that, given the profile of players that we have, they're not able to do it, I don't think, over 90 minutes, in my opinion. And then, as you say, the wing-backs, I don't think Doherty's able to do it. I think Emerson... I don't think tactically is that great, even though physically I think he's probably up to it. Sessegnon and Perisic, I don't think are able to do it over 90 minutes. And especially, I think the big one is the centre-backs for me. I think Dyer, Davis, Longley, are all not able to do that over 90 minutes on a consistent basis. And that leaves us really short, in my opinion, tactically. And that's a big problem.
Happy life, Tottenham. Let's move on to the ones to watch for Fulham. Obviously, we've marked out Mitrovic and Pereira. I've been really impressed with Pereira, to be honest, this season. Not only is it just his free kick ability in terms of games, but also his chance creation, the way he can fit into those tight spaces. Really been impressed with him, and he's had a new lease of life since leaving Manchester United. And Mitrovic, you know, people were questioning Mitrovic coming into this season. Can he do it in the Premier League after a no-show last time he was in the Premier League? And he's taken to it this year like a duck to water, to be honest. 11 goals, 1 assist this season for Mitrovic, and he's looking like one of the best strikers in the Premier League, to be honest, this season.
Yeah, I think he's doing well. I mean, I don't know about one of the best strikers in the Premier League, but I think he's playing very well. That's included also a lot of missed penalties. Imagine, I think about a couple missed penalties. If he got them, you know, would also be more goals. I like Mitrovic a lot. I don't think he's anything different to what he was a few years ago. I just think he's in a better system. He's in a more functioning system, which allows him to get more chances and score more goals. I think he's doing fantastic. I think he's causing trouble for a lot of centre-backs right now. Again, I think he's kind of a player that sometimes is on the periphery, but when he's involved, he's really involved in the game, and he's a proper handful. But he's one of those strikers you can kind of isolate, and I feel like if he's one of those strikers up front by himself and he's isolated, he can be ineffective. But when you get players around him and you get a good service into him, then he's a real handful, and he's proven to that be on a number of occasions this season. But if we can stop the supply into him, then it's going to be very difficult for him to get involved in the game.
Yeah, but you know, you're talking about the 4th best performing striker in the Premier League, so you can't say he's not one of the on-form strikers in the Premier League at the moment. I think he's playing absolutely brilliantly, and he's so physically dominant. So I worry about him coming up against Dyer this season, especially with the delivery that Pereira has, not only from open play but from set pieces as well. And it's not only Pereira, Willian as well is really coming and performing this season, and he's showing maybe that he's still got a bit of life left in those legs, Willian.
Yeah, he is stepping up, I have to say, Willian, surprisingly, after he was so bad a couple of years ago for Arsenal. It was that bad that they had to cancel his contract. That's how bad he was. And he looked overweight, and then he went off to Brazil, and you're thinking that would be the end of him. But he has come back in the Premier League and proving that he still does have the capability of performing at this level. He is doing well. He's not someone... And he's also someone who used to historically do well against Tottenham as well for Chelsea. That's something that also to point out. I remember he once scored a brace at the Tottenham Stadium and stuff like that.
Always scored against us.
He has a habit of scoring against us, and I'm sure he'll be super motivated in this game. So for sure, as someone to worry about. Look, in theory, we should have the players to stop him, but the way we're playing, and you definitely have to worry about him 100%. Like when you think about that, you think about their team. You know, Bobby Reid has having a decent season, but you know you shouldn't be too overly worried about him. Like before the game, compared to what we have, definitely have the players to win this game, and I think we still have. It's possible to win it narrowly. It's going to be a big battle, but the way Fulham, it's just the form both teams are on. You've got to be worried about going to Craven Cottage and getting all 3 points. I think logically, especially with all the rumours at the moment, how unsettled, we need a result right now. It kind of feels like we're back at where we were at Palace a couple of weeks ago, where we had to get a result in that game because it was just too much, the pressure building. And after 2 defeats to Arsenal and Man City, and now more uncertain news filtering in the news, we are desperate for a result on Monday night. Like, it's big. If we lose again to Fulham, like, the knives are going to really be out. Yeah,
really will be. If you bring up the opposition lineup, this is the same lineup which they went for last game against Newcastle. I'm expecting them to do the same with Leno in goal, Tete, Diop, Ream and Kazawa at the back, Paulina and Reed in the middle, with Reed, Pereira and Willian and Mitrovic up front. It's a bit of a tongue twister there with Ream, Reed and Reed. But No, I mean, you've got players on there that are performing out of their skin at the moment. You've got Leno, who's performing really well at the moment, and he seemed to have found a home at Fulham. Paulinho, who we covered before, and obviously you've got Willian Pereira and Mitrovic as well. In terms of that defence from Fulham, they have been performing quite well. Who's been really impressive for you this season?
Yeah, Diop I've liked. I've liked, obviously, Anthony Robinson on left back, but I think he might be injured at the moment. But I've really liked him this season. I actually thought even when he was last in the Premier League, he was really impressive. I think Bernd Leno, I have to say, has really had a great season so far for Fulham. He's made some really crucial saves in big games where maybe they wouldn't have got wins if it wasn't for him. So I think he's had a fantastic time. But as I say, the one in terms of like who I've been most impressed with this season for Fulham, it has to be Paulinho. I think he's been fantastic. But in their defence, they've just got a really good structure at the back. Marco Silva has got them really set up in a very organised way in their back line, and it gives them a really good platform. And you have to be impressed by that, to be fair. They've done really, really well for the first half of the season. And their performances have definitely been built off a solid foundation at the back. They don't. It's not necessarily they play bad football, but it's not. But it's not like they play free-flowing football all the time. But what they do is they dig in, make it very difficult for the opposition. They break up play a lot of the time, and they're performing very well at the moment. And they're getting the forward players involved, like Pereira, Willian, Mitrovic, getting good deliveries out to them. And their defence is very organised and it's very hard to break down. So Marco Silva, for me, has probably been the one who I've been most impressed with out of everyone.
Yeah, I've always rated Marco Silva, to be honest, even when he wasn't doing too well in his Premier League clubs beforehand. I've always thought he was a good manager, to be honest. But in terms of Spurs coming into this game, a few question marks to talk about. Heung-min Son being the main one, to be honest. With Richarlison back fit now, is it time to give Richarlison a start ahead of Sonny?
I think so, especially out on the left-hand side. I think that, for me, that makes sense. I think that Richarlison did well early in the season when he was in the team playing on the right-hand side, but things haven't gone as well as him. But I would like to see him start a game on the left in this kind of game where he can maybe improve our pressing as well with his tenacity. A bit of an aerial threat up front. We know what Richarlison can bring. So I think for me, Son has just... There has to be a point where he's coming out the team. And I think this is probably the point for me. And I think I was willing to give him that game against Man City because I knew tactically he is such a threat in these games of space to play with. But even in that game, he wasn't involved too much. We weren't getting him in behind. And I think Richarlison... I wouldn't even say he's earned a start, but I think it's time to just change that front line for now and give Richarlison a run of games.
Yeah, I agree. And I said the same before the Man City game, to be honest. I know he was the killer. He's a killer against Man City, but with the way he's playing, I didn't think it was even possible for him to be a killer. And that's the way it kind of panned out. So I agree. I'll put Richarlison in. And another one is another contentious decision might be Hugo Lloris, because... making mistake game after game now. That's, I think, 5 in his last 6 games, resulting in a goal. Do we put Fraser Forster in for this game? Do we take Hugo out the firing line?
Yeah, I think sometimes you just have a keeper is making so many mistakes. You do have to just take him out of the firing line, even if it's for a couple of games. I remember what's his name? Sir Alex Ferguson used to do that. I remember there was a stage where like De Gea was their number one, but he was just like making mistake after mistake, and it came to a point where for a few games he just had to put I can't remember who the sub keeper was at the time, but he just had to put him in for like 3 or 4 games just to stop the rot of mistakes. And that keeper proved himself probably not to be great, but it just done enough to get Hugo out the firing line, maybe mentally refresh himself. So I think as well, when it comes to Hugo, as much as I'm not a massive fan of Forster, and I think Forster would probably prove as well if he got a run of games that he's not a fantastic goalkeeper at his age. I think just get Hugo out of the firing line for now and get him out of the team just for his own freshness, because he said he's struggling with mental freshness, didn't he, Hugo Lloris? I think just for the time being, get him out and just give Forster a run of games. And I'm not even saying that he's the answer, it's going to improve us massively, but I do think you might see a better Hugo later down the line for it. as opposed to I think just for the end of the season, because I still think Hugo, I think he showed in the World Cup, he's still a very good keeper, and he can still make big saves and put in good performances. But I think right now you have to take him out. You definitely do.
Yeah, I might agree with that as well, to be honest. All right, so what's your score prediction for tomorrow?
I said in my predict the Prem 3-2 to Spurs. I think with all the uncertainty right now, it's worrying what kind of Tottenham we're going to see tomorrow. Because look, the players, as we know in this day and age, all the players are on social media. They see everything. They as much as they're being told don't read it, I'm sure they see it. They get sent things by friends and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see the reaction tomorrow with all the uncertainty, all the news coming out to the players. And it'll tell us a lot about how behind Conte they are and how they're fighting for him or not. But having said that, I think it's going to be I think I've changed my opinion. I think it's going to be a draw. I think it's going to be very difficult against this Fulham team, even if we're on playing well and we're on form, it's going to be a hard game. So considering everything, it's still going to be a hard game. So I think it's going to be. We've conceded 2 goals every game. I think it's going to be 2-2.
2-2.
Yeah, 2-2. We keep conceding goals, but I do think we have the firepower to hurt them. So I just feel like I don't see the defence holding up in this game. But I still, maybe if Richarlison comes in and gives us a bit at least of life going forward, I can see a draw, 2-2.
I think that things just going so bad. And when you just give up all hope with Spurs, something just creeps up round the corner. It was a similar feeling towards before the Palace game. And I feel like, look, obviously Palace were nowhere near on as much good form as Fulham are. And Fulham are looking like a better team at the moment. But I've just got a sneaky feeling we're going to win tomorrow. To
be fair, when you talk about Palace, the next 2 home games they played Newcastle and United and drew both of them. So.
True. Yeah, exactly. But look, I've just got a sneaky feeling. Just things are just going so bad. I think they're going to give us something to cheer about tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that if we can start the game well and just not make any mistakes, that's just the sticking point, isn't it?
If we do put in a big performance tomorrow and really play well and put in a convincing performance and win the game, would that tell you anything about where the players are at the moment with Conte?
Not really, to be honest. Not really. I think you could have asked me that before the Palace game. We put in a really good display that game. We won 4-0 and then we've been terrible since then. So
yeah, but I don't think we lost against Man City and Arsenal because of lack of trying.
No, I don't think there is a lack of trying in the squad. We've said it time and time again. What the problem is lack of quality. And we can beat these teams. We can beat Fulham. We can beat the teams below us. We just can't beat any competent sides, like any top quality sides. We can't beat the Arsenals, the Liverpools, the Chelseas, the Man Cities, the Man Uniteds. Those are the teams that we're going to consistently lose against with this team. I think we can sneak wins against teams like Fulham's and Brentford's and teams like that. I think we know where this team is at. We know where this squad is at. And they're showing exactly where they're at. Where we're at in the league is probably where we deserve to be, where this squad is at right now. So that's my opinion. I think Spurs are going to win 2-1 tomorrow. Sim's going for what, 2-2, George say? But let's get into BetMate. There's a £600 guaranteed pot this week for tomorrow night's game. It's a £5 entry as well. So come and take us on. It's really fun to play. It's very similar rules to FPL. If you play that, you get rewarded, though, on defensive actions. So tackles and interceptions are very important in this game. But let's go and see who we've picked. Starting off with my team, I've gone for Leno in goal. I think that both teams are going to concede. I just think Leno is going to make a few more saves, so I've gone for Leno. In terms of my defence, I've gone for Matt Doherty and Tete for Fulham. I think Matt Doherty could be in for a goal contribution if he starts, and Tete very much always in the defensive actions, tackles and interceptions. So I've gone for them two. In the midfield, I've gone for Paulinho. He's just a tackling and interception machine in the middle there for Fulham. And next to him, I've gone for Kulusevski as my captain, as he performed really well at the Etihad, and I'm expecting to have a good performance again. And then up front, I've gone for Mitrovic and Harry Kane, both of them in the top 5 goal scorers in the league this season. And Harry Kane, I've gone for my vice-captain, so that's my team.
I've gone for Leno in goal. Obviously, same logic to you. My back line, I've gone for Romero and Robinson. I might have to change Robinson because if he's injured, I think because was set to play. But Robinson does fly forward a lot. Obviously, Romero is going to be, I believe, going to be very involved in a battle with Mitrovic in the back line. So I can see a lot of tackles and things happening there. And he does like to get forward occasionally. Midfield, I've gone for Bentancur and Kulusevski. Bentancur showed so much in that Man City game, and I can't wait to see him back. And I thought he was brilliant and potential to push on. And then up front, as you say, Kane and Mitrovic, and I think Kane still looking to break that all-time record for Tottenham, and hopefully he does it in this game. And I think in each game he's trying his best to do it, and hopefully it'll come.
Yeah, let's hope so. So that is our BetMate teams. Come and take us on to win your share of £600 tomorrow night. That is your match preview for the Fulham game tomorrow.